Hello, friends. Welcome aboard the Round Trip Stories podcast, where we share stories of moving around the world and back again, reflecting on the lessons we've learned along the way. My name is Melissa.
And my name is Tracy, and we are excited to welcome you to this Round Trip Stories Customs episode. We learn so much when we step outside our own culture and customs to see things differently. It helps us get to know the world and ourselves a little better.
Just like you don't know what questions the customs agent is going to ask you in the airport, we don't know what we will be discussing in these customs conversations. We will simply pick a customs topic out of a virtual hat and see where the conversation takes us. Flight crew, prepare for takeoff. Okay, so we are back for another customs chat, and we are going to get to pick a topic. We don't know what it will be, but we will get to have another fun conversation about all the random, wonderful things that we have experienced and that are part of culture and customs around the world.
Well, last time it was about bread. So I can still smell those bakeries running and see Laura Lee's painting of her bread in Antigua.
I wish that we could have somehow had people send us bread. Not just bread stories, but like actual bread.
Yeah, we could taste test the bread. At least have the smells.
We should stop talking about bread and figure out what our next topic is.
My thighs are already getting bigger.
All right. Drum roll, please.
What is it?
Our next topic is music.
Oh.
Music.
A melody floats through the air, into our ears, and lands in our souls. If we're lucky, we can create it from our soul, send it out our mouths and our hands and back into the world. What did music mean to us when we lived in another place? How did it influence us? Let's hear some custom stories about music.
What are our favorite stories about music that we have experienced abroad or that's cultural?
Well, I think the very first thing that comes to mind are kids' Chinese songs. Because when we were in China, I was raising small children. So we had toddlers and they were in preschools and kindergartens learning Chinese. And that really helped me to learn Chinese too. Mm-hmm. And I still like, 交啊交啊交朋友，你是我的好朋友. So the translation for that little kid's song is, find a friend, you are my good friend. And then I'm not sure the rest. But it's just such a sweet, early childhood song because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to find friends. But those are just, songs, nursery rhymes that all Chinese kids sing, and they're very happy. And I love that. And then also I loved that one time we were at our international school and they would often do like whole school activities on the play yard. And they were playing Oppa Gangnam Style in the elementary school. And it was the first time I had heard that song. And so we were in China. Let's see, what year was it? It was before 2013. Well, it was really popular.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what is this song? And why does everybody know it? Well, as a matter of fact, the whole world knew it. And it was one of the most played songs ever, this K-pop song.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, how funny. Yeah. Oh, goodness.
So music is important for gathering people and also for acquiring language, for sure.
When I think about music, especially when I think about music from our time in Peru, the first thing that I thought of is the dance. So when my husband and I first went just to visit, so not when we moved, but the kind of the pre-move visit that we took. The first time we were there, we went to the city of Trujillo. And so just like many countries and places, Peru has different dances that represent different regions. So each region will have kind of their folkloric dance that is unique to their place. Well, there is a particular dance called the marinera, and it is a traditional dance that's done with a guy and a girl, and the girl is always wearing this beautiful flowy dress, similar to
the folklorical dresses?
Yeah, similar, but they all have their unique style. But it was almost always white, but the girl wouldn't wear shoes. She was always barefoot, but the guy had a hat, and she would have a handkerchief, and there was lots of waving, and just all this stuff. And it's but what's special about the city and this dance is that there's a national marinera competition that happens every year, and it's in that city of Trujillo. And so we happened to visit on the weekend of that competition, and there's a particular song, like there can be different songs. There's not just one song, but there's a very specific rhythm, and it always has a part in the middle where it goes to kind of a little drum roll, and there's lots of trumpets, and then it goes into the end, and it's this very recognizable kind of music, and you would hear it in the square. Like sometimes there would be the dancers in the town square doing their performances on that weekend or whatever, and so it just makes brings back warm fuzzy memories when I think about that music and that place. I loved that. I loved all that music, but I'm sure we'll have more stories. There are going to be some great stories about music. Let's hear the global stories our social media and email subscribers had to share with us about music. Our first music story is from Helen, and she said, when in Cali, Colombia, teaching in an American school, my friend and I stayed with a local family to help us learn Spanish. I really missed the joy of sitting at the piano, so I bought a guitar and learned to play it some. I tried to learn classical guitar from a teacher friend, but found the do, re, mi scale, plus learning all the fingering was difficult. So I taught myself the chords, etc. When my husband and I later ministered in Panama with people from the Darien, God showed me why he had me learn guitar earlier, because without electricity or luxuries, people could still play guitar in their huts at night. I taught what I knew to them. My grandfather helped buy some guitars for them, and they totally exceeded my limited knowledge with their beautiful music. Funny thing is, the first thing I taught them was the do, re, mi scale that I had struggled with when I first started learning to play the guitar.
Oh, I love how we can use our struggles and it makes fruit. There's always fruit from our struggles.
Yes. And what's really neat is that I happen to know that there are people still that live out in the Darien jungle. So these are the Wunan and Emberá indigenous tribes of people that live in Panama. And there are still people that learned how to play the guitar from Helen who have taught other people how to play the guitar. And so she's got guitar student grandchildren in in Panama. And it's neat how the music just keeps playing.
Our next story is from Andy, and he says, when I first went to Thailand, I wanted to bring guitar tuners almost as much as I wanted to bring the gospel. But then I realized that Thailand has a style of classical music that uses a different scale. Instead of the Western scale, it has a heptatonic scale system, 7 notes equally distant, which sounds completely different and off to our ears. So I had a lot more empathy for those who were trying to be musically bilingual. But I still taught people how to tune guitars properly. This included teaching guitar to young gals in the juvenile detention center, one of whom is now out of jail and leading worship in her church, as well as training others. I am thankful for the power of music to build bridges across cultures.
Yeah. Isn't that true? It's both a universal language, and yet there are so many different musical languages. There's a link in Wikipedia to a sample of what that scale sounds like. And so I'm going to play it so we can hear, because it compared to our Western scale, the 7 notes does sound different. So here's what it sounds like. Isn't that interesting? I'd never really thought about, well, I've never taken music theory. I'm a musician. I play the guitar and I sing and I played the clarinet, but I didn't ever take music theory. And so, yeah, it's just interesting how to think about where did the musical scale come from? And I don't know. Yeah, that's really interesting to think of. But I love the idea of being musically bilingual.
And I appreciated that he was honest and said to his ears the music sounded off. And I think about Chinese opera and how it sounds very...
Oh, what did it sound like?
High, kind of whiny and screamy to my Western ears. But there's rhythm and there's organization to it, not to mention thousands of years of culture. And so just because something sounds off to us doesn't mean it's off to other people.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that story, Andy.
Our next story is from Iris, and she has an amazing, eloquently said story about music.
My first year in Beijing was difficult and lonely. I had pushed through and survived, but felt especially low in the middle of winter. One morning, I was walking through the city to my Chinese language class. The wind was cold and the sky was gray. Even the concrete city seemed gray around me. I felt a sort of hunger for beauty. I remembered wondering if there was such a thing. Can you be hungry or thirsty for beauty? In the middle of these thoughts, I heard music on the wind. I didn't know where it was coming from and wondered if I might be imagining it. It was the sound of a flute playing a beautiful melody filled with movement and emotion. As I drew closer, the music got louder. I saw it was coming from one of the walkways built underneath the big Beijing streets. The sound of the flute was like water to the thirsty ground in my soul. I went down the steps and saw an elderly man all bundled up, wearing gloves with the tips of the fingers cut out. He was the artist and the very skilled performer. The underground walkway served as a sort of amplifier. It was really beautiful. People were walking past him and ignoring the music, but I walked toward him and stood a couple of feet directly in front of him. He stared at me as he continued to play. I stared at him with tears in my big, green, foreign eyes. When they could hold no more, the tears ran down my cheeks. We could not have had a conversation. He, after all, was playing the flute. I could not speak Chinese. When he stopped playing, he slowly lowered his flute down, and we continued to stare for a minute without a word. I was clearly moved by the music, which clearly moved him. Finally, I said, "Xie xie, thank you." He nodded and smiled, and I went on my way to class. Later, I couldn't help but wonder if he had been an angel.
Right, angel or old man in a tunnel. It was a gift of beauty to you when you were hungry for beauty. And I love Iris's phrase about, can you be hungry for beauty? I think you can, whether it be hungry for nature's beauty or aesthetic beauty or music. musical beauty.
Yeah. I think that that story, Iris, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm one of those people who, when I get really busy or when I get really stressed, I ignore the fact that my body is hungry, and I will just keep working and just keep doing things and not eat, even though I'm hungry, because I have too much to get done. And I think that just like I can ignore my body's physical hunger, that I can be prone to ignoring my soul's hunger for beauty. And it's just a reminder to pay attention to what our hearts and our souls need, because I think sometimes we do need to literally stop and smell the roses and listen to the music and let it nourish our hearts and our spirits.
And I think that we get filled up by consuming beauty, like we need to intake it, but then also it's good for our soul to create. So maybe we are creating art or creating music.
Yeah, taking time to create beauty. We need to savor it and create it and share it. Thank you so much for that beautiful story, Iris. We have another story from Harold, and he shares that in the year 2000, I traveled to the south of India to participate in the 100th anniversary of our Mennonite Brethren mission work in that country. The event was held under a large shamiana, I hope I'm saying that right, a tent-like structure on the grounds of the mission hospital. Upon entering, I noted that in addition to perhaps 1,000 people under the tent, there was a 100th anniversary choir of about 100 singers at the side of the stage, and sitting in front of them was a group of instrumentalists, with the most notable being players of the Indian drum called a tabla. I was amazed by the variety of sounds the players could produce from that instrument. After the event, I spoke to a pastor about the possibility of buying such an instrument to take home to my younger son who plays percussion. He said he knew someone who could make me a set, and before I left, I had them in hand.
Oh my gosh.
The only problem was they would not fit in my luggage, so I had to carry them on board on the flights, including through a connection in Thailand. I guarded them carefully in the overhead bins on each flight. Then for the last leg from Los Angeles to Fresno, my flight was on a small prop plane without bins. They told me I had to place the drum set in the shelf at the back of the plane where everyone else would toss their rollerboards. I wasn't about to let those drums get damaged at that point in my journey, so I complained to the stewardess. She kindly placed them carefully in the crew cabinet for me. They got home safely. My son loved them and learned to play them for as long as they lasted. What a great souvenir to bring home, a unique instrument that can bring home the sound of a place that you visited, that you loved, and share it with other people. Justin has an amazing story for us about how music brings people together in Japan.
Hi Tracy, hi Melissa. Thanks so much for inviting me to share a story about music. Now I love music. And I grew up in Japan. And one of the biggest parts of Japanese culture, as well as what brought me some of the most joy growing up there, was karaoke. Or karaoke, as you would say in the West, but I'm going to call it by its proper pronunciation, karaoke. Now, karaoke originated in Japan, and although in the West you might envision, going to a bar, standing on stage, singing in front of a bunch of strangers, which honestly terrifies me, in Japan it's different. In Japan, you rent out your individual private room with your friends, and you get to sing your heart out with no worries about who's listening or who's critiquing or judging. And the great thing is it's so accessible because you can find karaoke places everywhere in Japan. They're ubiquitous. Like at every train station, there's at least one. And some of the bigger train stations, like Ikebukuro, have about 10 plus. So it was really easy to get to. It was our go-to spot after school. You know, we would go and we would pay 300 to 400 yen an hour, drink included, which is about $3 or $4. And it was a great way to unwind, especially after a long, busy day. The room is already equipped with a machine with thousands of songs in the catalog, both Japanese songs as well as Western songs. So, you know, we would sing everything from Coldplay and Fall Out Boy to High School Musical and Phantom of the Opera, and even Japanese songs, Japanese bands with great names like Bump of Chicken and Radwimps. So you had all those songs at your disposal. You had 2 mics. You sometimes had flashing lights, which was cool. And you get to order drink and food, which they would deliver to your room. And it was just such a blissful moment of escapism, of, you know, forgetting the stresses and worries of life and just singing your heart out and having the time of your life with your friends. And I can often tie a lot of key moments in life to karaoke, you know, whether it was celebrating the end of an exam, celebrating someone's birthday, we would often go, or even going with, you know, your crush and singing a love song and hoping, just praying that she knew that you were singing to her. But yeah, there was once as well that we kind of stepped it up a notch. A few friends invited me to do a karaoke all-nighter. Now, I had never done an all-nighter in my life, and the thought of it kind of both excited and scared me. But I was like, why not? Why not sing for 6 hours and see whether my voice held up? So we did it, and I loved it. You would basically pay 1,000 yen, so that's about $10 to get out of the room 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So you get it for 6 hours. And we sang right through the night. And I never experienced anything like that. And I was high on adrenaline, and I felt like I could keep going. It was a bit surreal at 5 a.m. when we stumbled out into the light, and we were all a bit groggy. But at the end of the day, karaoke is a place with so many good memories, and it's so much fun.
I loved that story.
Justin, thank you so much for your story about the karaoke adventures that you had. I love how you just let loose and sang, especially an all-nighter. Very impressive.
Yes.
In China, we did KTV, which is karaoke, and had a girls' night out singing and just loved it.
I think that I love music for its ability not just to change our mood and the atmosphere in the moment, but also, you know how when you hear a song from your childhood and it sort of takes you back to where you were. And I love how listening to certain instruments or songs now can take us back to when we were in different places. And so just even having this conversation makes me want to go back and dig up some of the songs that I listened to and enjoyed from our churches in Peru. And I think that we can use music as a tool for remembering, and it can help us revisit and remember the value of places and people. And I feel inspired to go and, find some Peruvian music and enjoy it today.
We heard music stories from around the world, and we know that we can use music as a tool to remember. Music is a universal language and can build bridges across cultures. And at the same time, music carries culture and meaning specific to place and people. It can teach us culture, language, and even how to find friends. Music marks celebrations and gathering of people, whether in karaoke rooms or out in a school play yard. Music's beauty feeds our thirsty souls. Let's not go without it.
We're so grateful to our friends who shared their stories for this episode. We believe that sharing stories helps our understanding of the world grow larger while the distance between us grows smaller. To find out what stories we're collecting for our next Customs episodes, sign up for our email list at roundtripstories.com or follow us on social media at Round Trip Stories Podcast. We would love for our listeners to hear your stories too.
Come back next time for our guest episode with Dr. Stanley Asasu from Ghana, who studied medicine in Wuhan, China, and got out the day before the city closed down because of the pandemic.
Thanks so much for listening, friends. We'll see you next time.
This also reminds me of my husband, who I think he got a secondhand drum set when we lived in Beijing, and he had to bring it home, but we didn't have a car, and I think he brought it home on our bike, but we had a bicycle, it was like a tricycle with a container in the back, or a container, like a little bucket in the back. But he had to strap himself. He had to strap the drums around him to bring that drum set home. And it ended up in our master bedroom.
Does anybody play it?
No. I think our kids played it. And then we used the drumsticks to put into the window wells.
Oh.
Because there were no screens.
Yes.
There were no screens on our windows, and we lived on the
This is in China?
fifth floor.
You did this?
And we lived on the fifth floor. So we didn't want our kids to fall and open the window and accidentally fall out the windows. And so we put the drumsticks in that windowsill well, so they wouldn't open. And then we carried those drumsticks with us and did the same thing in Wuhan. So the drumsticks were actually a very important safety feature in our living.
That was that was some good expat ingenuity there.